We are back live again. So we're live and people can hear us?
Yes.
Okay. Okay, so I will call this meeting to order. Are there any changes to the agenda? Councillor Ferguson?
Motion to adopt the agenda as presented.
Motion is on the floor. Any discussion? Call the question. Those in favor? That is carried. First, we've got minutes from April 19th in our package on page 3. Any issues with those minutes? If not, Councillor Giroux.
Motion to accept the special meeting of council, April 19th, 2022 minutes as presented.
Any discussion? Call the question. Those in favor? That is carried. Next, we have the minutes from the 26th. Councillor Brandel.
I am listed as present and I was in Mexico.
Okay, we'll change the minutes and your timesheet while we're at it. Any other issues with those minutes? Motion to accept the minutes as amended. Council, you can't because you weren't here. Councillor Gramlich makes that motion to accept amended minutes from April 26th. Any discussion? Call the question. Those in favor? That is carried. Lastly, we've got minutes from May 3rd, regular meeting on page 5. Any issues? Councillor Adams,
Make a motion to accept the regular minutes of council, May 3rd, 2022 as presented.
any discussion? Call the question. Those in favor? That is carried. Next, we will jump into, we do have a CEO update. So Mr. Roth, if you want to take it away.
Thank you, Your Worship. I'm just going to highlight a couple of things from the CAO update. Of course, the CAO updates are always available on the town's website under the Office of the CAO section of the website. First off, administration has met with Public Security Canada on the RCMP retroactive salary increase costs. This was a meeting called by the public servants for administration to talk to administration. We really re-emphasized the stance that the town has taken, which is in line with what Alberta municipalities stance has taken. There was a few municipalities on the call and we've all had the same concerns and passed on the same concerns. But they wanted us to reinforce that no decisions have been made at this time and staff are making recommendations to the minister at this stage. So more to come. I'm going to jump down to economic development because there's been lots of hard work going on in that area. Insight as our contractor, and they've wrapped up the stakeholder engagement in terms of the visual identity project. And their plan is to move forward with a presentation first to the SLT to get our feedback and then to council on June 21st. So they've got a definite timeline that they're working on. They've also we're continuing to do work on the digital advertising campaign. They've secured an additional web domain for visitslavellake.ca would be a landing page. And from that landing page would be any links to either the regional tourism site or various pieces, various businesses, wherever those links need to go in terms of their digital marketing campaign. Work continues to happen in lots of economic development areas. And one of the areas that has come up more recently is the availability of an economic development or economic calculator for tourism types of things. So for example, we hosted hockey provincials. Wouldn't be able to know exactly what that economic development or economic impact is in our community. Insight did some research on a couple of opportunities and they found one that's actually a fairly low cost, as in almost free calculator that the town could use, and it's a partnership, would be a partnership with Travel Alberta, and that will be available shortly. We will be using it. The intent is to use it for the hockey provincials as an example. If we have enough information to go backwards retroactively and use that to be able to calculate an economic impact for that one event, and then have it available for future events. And of course, Insight continues their work and they are looking at some of the next steps under the Economic Development Action Plan because they feel like they've got a number of the initiatives underway. I'm Going to jump down to recruitment. We've had, a few new hires, more in the summer seasonal types of jobs that have started up. Lots of work continues on in terms of recruitment. There's a lot of interviewing and a lot of activity happening in that area. Happy to report that we have a new public works operator joined us today. So that's another step forward. Under finance, a lot of the information that's there is, as part of our business as usual. Tax notices did go out on May 9th, and that always generates inquiries and work for our staff in terms of being able to respond to those tax notices going out. I'm going to jump down to operations. Of course, they've been doing potholes, grading gravel roads, sweeping residential lawns. One of the interesting points that operations has passed on is they've already gone through 6,000 kilograms of cold mix. Works out to roughly between 350 and 400 potholes that have already been filled so far this season, and that number increases every day that we go on. And of course, the plastic asphalt contractor has completed their work, which had them focus mainly along Main Street this year. Moving down to projects, the Sawridge Creek waterline replacement. So that is the water line that runs underneath the creek between Schurter Park and Springwood. Has had some significant progress. The line was pressure tested, and a lot of work has been done in terms of the open trenching. They did run into one of the challenges in terms of the alignment being too close to some of the other shallow utilities, and will result in a change order and some changes to that project to seek a new alignment out into the street. We're just waiting for final costs on that. Of course, there's also cost savings. So we just need to figure out, sort out exactly where that's going to be and see if it's within our budget and our contingencies. A lot of other projects are either in the planning stages or moving forward. So for example, lift station C Force Main, contractors are expected to mobilize around July 4th. Work is being planned for Hilda Eben Park, the tennis court resurfacing. New Spray Park RFP is out and closes on May 31st. And as council heard earlier tonight, demolition work will restart on the South Plaza in the downtown revitalization area. And with curb and gutter starting to happen probably next week, is somewhat dependent upon weather. The other good news part is that the crosswalk on Caribou Trail, where the new trail by the fire hall connects for pedestrians to go across Caribou Trail to Big Fish Bay. The flashing lights were installed, and the company that's doing that is working on the programming. They will also be working on the beacons for the intersection. So when fire trucks come out, there will be flashing beacons there. Under planning development, of course, they're working with a couple of landowners around extensions to sanitary sewer, and also working on a number of other land use issues. Fire department has been busy, continues to be busy with 176 calls for service so far this year. And members in the community may have seen that the fire department has started to do their hazard reduction burning around town and in the MD before it was really hampered by the wet weather that we got. Under enforcement services, they've had another busy month too, with 85 calls for service for the month of April. And I did want to make public comment or public kudos for our peace officers. They've dealt with some very challenging files lately. I won't go into details, but the significant amount of tact that they've been able to handle those situations with, I think they deserved a little bit of public recognition. Moving into our recreation and programming, we've had inquiries a while back for adult swimming lessons and adult skating lessons. Both of those are up and running. The adult swim lessons are full, and skating lessons have been very successful and continue on. Of course, we'll be hosting a swim meet here in the end of the end of May. Sorry. The focus is slowly starting to shift over to parks and sports fields. Things are a little bit delayed because of the weather. I know baseball and slow pitch groups wanted to be out there earlier, but the weather has hampered that a little bit. Play center is now open at the MRC. And the other highlight I wanted to mention is Barton Park repairs are scheduled to start tomorrow. Crews will be, I spoke with them today. They will be on site starting tomorrow. The whole project should be wrapped up by the end of next week. So install the equipment today, or this week, I should say, and then next week they're working on the rubber surfacing. And our visitor information center is opening to the public on Friday. So hours will be from Wednesday to Sunday from 11 to 5 at this point in time. And then as more staff are hired, we will expand those hours out. It's certainly the intent. And then under events, there's a lot of events and things happening. We put down all of May's events so that you have a flavor of what's been going on in the community, but there's certainly lots of things happening with some big things coming up at the MRC at the end of this month. Be happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Okay, questions from council? Councillor Adams.
Just a couple to go through. I was wondering about, as far as the visitor information goes, just for my learning, do we keep any sort of stat on that usage to understand how much we are utilizing the visitor information stuff that we're hiring?
Yes, we do. We keep stats every year. The challenge has been, of course, is the last couple of years with COVID, the service has been either not happening at all or has been encouraged to be interprovincial only. So that's been a bit of a challenge, but going by 2019 stats and prior is what we've kind of basing things on. So decisions like our hours, we kind of based it around those types of things.
Does that get something that gets reported on a regular basis or reviewed?
Typically, we bring the stats at the end of the season because it is only May till early September.
Okay, keep going if you got more.
Okay. Your GIS that we have available, or is that something we're looking at making public at all? Or do we have any of that GIS information available to the public?
I would have to look into that further. I'm sorry.
Is there a reason why we don't?
You need a different platform to serve it up on and software to do it. And right now our GIS only is available to some of the staff and you need licenses for it too. So it would be a different platform that they'd have to put it up on. And I don't even know that the platform they are using is capable. That would be a question for our director of operations, I guess.
Okay. Thanks.
Other questions from council? Keep going, Councillor Adam.
Last one, I swear. Okay, so in the report, we're saying we're averaging approximately 24 hours of ICE programmed or booked at Arena 1 each week.
Yep.
How many hours in a week are we actually available?
Good question. Sorry, I'm just doing the math in my head here. I'll just say that there's not a lot of availability.
I'm more concerned about what we're offering for usage. I understand if we're full, but are we only open like 2 hours a day, or are we actually open for a 12-hour period every day of the week?
So it's based around our staffing limitations. So it's roughly open from say 4 to 6 hours per day is where we're at with ICE availability to the public. Of course, there's typically not a lot of demand for daytime weekday ICE, right? So that's counting your evenings, right, predominantly.
And we're not seeing that request for, or that demand?
That ICE is,
That's what I'm getting at. Do we
that
need
ICE
to
is
staff
largely
up in order to offer more hours, or are we just kind of?
Well, they're supposed to be
Where
bringing
we're
us a
at.
report. It was one of our
Yeah.
things that we'd asked for, and in June, they're supposed to be bringing one that breaks out some of that usage and.
and the other challenge too is that just as a current staffing situation with having only 4 staff and staff are also starting to deliver services in parks. We've contracted a lot of our parks pieces out, but it is still very tight in terms of staffing resources, right? We could increase our hours a little bit, but there's just not enough people to go around.
My question kind of piggybacks on that just a little bit, I guess. My understanding is that we're keeping in the ICE in till the end of May. We're extending that season for April and May. Our next meeting is not going to be until June. And so I am curious there coming June, do you intend to pull the ice out at that point, leave it in, keep doing what you're doing? I know there's discussions around the fact that it might be cheaper to just leave the ice in, but maybe we just wouldn't have it available because we're moving some of the staff to parks. What does that world look like?
The information that I have based on the calculations is that it is cheaper to keep the ice in. We do have to do some considerable amount of, I'll call it conversion from our old system to the cold water ice generation. So it does mean we have to scrape the ice and do some floods. We will have a need for skates in between. So there will be, the schedule will look very different going into June.
Okay.
But there will be a bit of opportunities to use ice in June.
Okay, so we're not gonna pull out the ice. We're gonna move to the cold water. We're gonna do a bunch of maintenance pieces and work on it in June. But in order for us to be able to do that, we'll throw in some skates because it's beneficial to us.
Yeah.
To work the ice as we're building it.
Yeah. And then there will be opportunities for ice rentals going into July and August but then bearing in mind, usually by mid-August, we have hockey school starting up and ice dogs would, whatever their schedule looks like, we would have users starting to use the ice in mid-August. So.
Okay. Councillor Adams?
Does it, to keep going on that, does it make sense to be a little more proactive then and then add additional staff as necessary, or in order to offer that all the way through, or that's not feasible?
We have been trying to hire additional staff for that crew for quite some time. We have had hired additional staff, but in the meantime, things haven't always worked out with some of the staff.
So you haven't hit an issue where you've been fully complemented to consider even adding addition?
No, we haven't been at full complement. We're probably have 4 workers when we normally would have 5 workers and a supervisor. So.
Okay. Other questions, comments from council? What's that, sir? Yeah, no. There's any questions you got for CAO? This is, yeah. Councillor Hughes.
Okay. So I just had a question for you, Gary. The last week I was in just on a personal business matter to get a permit and a few things here at the town. And I noticed that we don't accept credit cards. And I was just wondering if you could kind of elaborate on why, because I guess from a customer service standpoint and things like that, and even a business owner coming in wanting to pay with your business card and things like that, it's definitely a little bit inconvenient. So I was just curious on if you could elaborate why we don't do that.
Since our finance director's here,
Roland, come up and use the mic if you don't mind, please.
So we have looked into the credit card option before. It does come with a cost. So, generally your business, you have that credit card option, you can drum up some more business. The town can expand its services that way. So there is an additional fee that we'd have to budget for. I think the last time we looked at it, it was like about a $10,000 addition to the budget to pay for the credit card fees for the expected credit card use. In light of that, we did move to option pay. So you can use a credit card through that service and pay the fees through them. So you're allowed to use a credit card, just not directly through the town. It's through our option pay vendor.
Okay. Because at the front, that hasn't been indicated.
Yeah, and that's just why I question it. I think just process and obviously customer service, basis. It was more like, we don't have credit cards, you need to pay by debit. And most people might be floored by that and might not have that on them and then delaying their process, right? So
Okay.
I'm just wondering if there's a way we could streamline things and maybe explore that, because I do think it's important and part of our service level.
We can definitely relook at the credit card and bring back another report with the outline there. The option pay, I guess one of the things is it's an online thing. So when you come into the town office, you have to be online, right? So it's like it's an option, but not physically
Okay.
come into the building. I mean, it's only for select items that we had there. So mostly to do with utility bills.
Okay.
Okay, Councillor Gramlich and then Councillor.
Sorry, and that's just for utilities or business license? Because I think you can pay by credit card at the MRC for rentals, no?
They did have, they had that option over there. It just when we looked at the fee structure from over there, most of the services that they were billing for over there are small. So I think the
Was a big
actual,
loss.
yeah, like for the 2% or the 1.7% that the credit card company charges, it was only about $600 a year in fees versus if, in our estimation, the amount of people that wanted to use a credit card for utility bills was significantly higher.
Got ya.
Okay, Counselor Drew.
So I'm just going to throw it out there. That would be nice to see in the report is a lot of businesses, instead of taking the hit for the fees, will say, if you want to use credit card, there is a surcharge for that. And we could establish what that is based on the fee structure. So I think people will pay a lot for convenience. I've heard that a few times, same with Counselor Hughes here, that the option of debit cash is incredibly outdated.
You can't charge a credit card surcharge. It's illegal.
You can charge a disbursements fee. There are options to do it, or we increase our prices as well to accommodate something like that across the board.
Okay, so it sounds like council would like a report to discuss credit card options and fees. So a motion for administration to bring back a report for customer service options to take credit card for various town payments.
Yes.
Councillor Hughes is making that motion. Any discussion? Call the question. Those in favor? That's carried. Thanks, Rowan. Other
Thank you.
Questions? Comments? Going once, going twice. Okay, we'll jump into our regular reports. So first one is bylaw number 11, 2022. So this is an amended version of property that we've seen previously. Additionally, it is also driven by the applicant, which is not the town of Slave in his first reading. As such, we don't discuss it until the public hearing has concluded. And so I would be looking for a motion from council to set the first reading. Councillor Adams. Page 14. Sorry, Councillor Adams, can you turn on your microphone?
Thank you for the
Feel free
reminder.
to start again.
That bylaw number 11-2022 to amend the land use district map of the land use bylaw 22-2007 by redistricting lot 14, block 12, plan 2977 RS from R1 standard detached residential district to R2 medium density residential district receives first reading and the required public hearing be scheduled for June 21st, 2021.
2022, but I'm with you.
Or 2022, geez. I'm on a
Motion is-
roll.
Motion is on the floor. Any discussion? Call the question. Those in favor? That is carried. Okay, next we've got fire services truck purchase. Thanks, Laurie.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. We're on page 19 of the information package. So this year in the 2022 budget, pickup truck was budgeted for in the capital to replace one of our existing units. Early on in the process, we started to find out that supply and demand, the costs have gone up substantially since the last time we purchased a truck in 2020. We quickly realized that we were going to be over budget. So we worked with the different dealerships in town. We found a truck that would meet our needs. They also will take possession of the old truck and do a trade-in value on that. By the time it's all deckled and has the radios, we're going to be over budget by approximately $8,000. We don't have a final price on that yet. We're doing our best to get that cost down. The main driver of this is the government rebates that when we had lots of supply of pickup trucks is basically gone. The dealership that we're working with currently has found about $1,000. That's the best they could do. That's down from about $19,000 the last time we purchased a vehicle in Slave Lake. So that's the main driver for being over budget now is the rebates are basically disappeared. And that's due to the sole fact of supply and demand of very hard to find vehicles that would fit the needs of the fire service or anybody for that matter, that everybody's having the same issues. So we went back and forth and we were able to find one, like I said, that would fit close to our budget. We did drop down a size vehicle that would still do the job that we wanted to do for the next 5 to 7 years. And so we have a couple of choices to proceed with the change in budget for the extra $8,000 or to defer it for another year. The problem is we don't forecast the prices going down anytime soon. So potentially by waiting for another year or two, the prices could continue to rise and we might be in the same situation, being over budget. So working with finance, we did have some money left in the reserves that would cover the overage if that's the way council chooses to go.
Okay, questions from council? I've got one.
Yep.
So, so you said that the price isn't 100% confirmed here, that you guys are still sorting that out, or it is confirmed? Like,
So the
my-
price of the pickup truck is confirmed. What we're still trying to, like, when we take the old truck in and get all the radio and lights and stuff removed, we're able to use some of that old equipment, but we won't know exactly how much until it gets into the shop and it's removed. And we don't want to do that until we're okay to purchase the truck. So it's not going to be more than the $8,000 over, but it could potentially be less than the $8,000.
Okay, so you're not gonna be coming back looking for another
No,
$2,500?
That's the max we would be over budget.
Okay, that's all I was concerned about. Counselor Drew.
And judging by supply chain, this will be a ways out until we received it.
No, the reason that we're coming now is because we actually found one that suits the bill in town. So we kind of put a hold on it till we can come to council and discuss this matter.
Okay, other questions? Not, Counselor Hughes?
Oh, my mic's on. Be resolved that council approves amending the 2022 capital project fire services pickup truck budget from 60,000 to 68,000 to be funded from the fire truck and rescue reserve that has a balance of $304,161.
Any discussion? Call the question, those in favor? That is carried.
Thank you.
Thanks, Alex. Next, FCSS grants, Darcy. Welcome. What's that?
Just came from the pool.
Thought it was raining outside.
Yeah, no. Good evening, Mayor and Council. The budget is approved for $35,000 to be awarded to community organizations through FCSS external grants. We did our first application, a grant application run, and received 2 grant applications. These grants help community organizations do programs within the community that are not direct to us, but we assist them to get the programs going so that they can eventually do them on their own. We got 2 applications, one from Northwest Central Alberta FASD network, and they are going to do a Let's Get Real project in Slave Lake for all grades 5 to 12 students. And this is like a catch up. They wanted to do this before COVID and they obviously couldn't go into school. So they are playing catch up to cover all these grades before the end of the school year. And so they're providing to Slave Lake schools and surrounding areas. And the program provides information and support for students in the areas of healthy relationships, sexual health, consent, drugs and alcohol, pregnancy, and fetal alcohol spectrum disorder. Northwest Central FASD requested $10,000 in FCSS funding. And my recommendation is to give them $7,000. Then the Lesser Slave Forest Education Society applied for their Enviroquest Camp, and these camps are for 11 to 15-year-olds, and it gives them the opportunity to try activities in the forest, as well as build social skills and develop friendships. They have applied for $850, and my recommendation is to give them the $850 amount.
Okay. Questions from council? Councilor Adam.
Mine's just mainly on the process for this. So you felt you vet each one of these and make sure it meets our criteria and check them off kind of thing?
Yeah, and then they provide a final report at the end, and they have to describe how they used outcomes measures for the success of their program. And then I report that to the province.
Okay. And then why the recommendation of a reduction in funding from 10 to 7?
Their application stated that they were applying for Slave Lake end area, including outlying areas. The 7,000 would cover just the Slave Lake schools.
Thank you.
Okay, any other comments, questions? Councilor Brandel,
I will make a motion
feel free.
that council approve 7850 in external community grant FCSS funds for spring 2022 as follows. Northwestern Central Alberta FASD Service Network Society for 7,000. Lesser Slave Lake Forest Education Society for 850 for a total of 7850.
Motion is on the floor. Any discussion? Call the question. Those in favor? That is carried.
Thank you.
Thanks, Darcy. Service level report. Rolling, page 31 in our package.
Hey, good evening, your worship and members of council. So I've put together a little service report here for the town office reception, which is the area just adjoining this room. To start off, this was a group project by the finance team, mainly the people at the front and myself. So just to outline the mission that we're hoping to accomplish at the front is just to provide excellence in customer service through our unwavering commitment to residents, staff, and guests to the community through our understanding of municipal operations and continued focus on innovative process improvement. Starting off with the basics, reception is run by 3 employees. They provide services both externally to the public as well as internally for each department. How we feel that we fit into the grand scheme of the town. We believe that connecting residents to the information they are looking for, assisting with payment options and inquiries, both in person, over the phone, or online, is a service that enables the town to achieve its vision to build opportunities for business, industry, population, promote ourselves and our exceptional quality of life. Our hours of operation, so reception works 8 a.m. to 4:30 p.m. Mondays to Fridays. Our hours that are open to the public are 8:15 a.m. to noon and 1 p.m. to 4:15. Over COVID, we had shifted the hours slightly. We do give ourselves 15 minutes in the morning to sanitize, clean, and prepare cash for the day, and as well as 15 minutes at the end of the day there to enable staff to close out and perform all of the duties that need to be performed, and this is to help to avoid overtime incurred and still provide a great service. We are the first point of contact for the town most often. General services provided by the reception are just general inquiries and bill payments, utility inquiries and bill payments, taxation inquiries, and tax payments. And each employee oversees their respective area and provides support and assistance overall. Services that we provide. So there are a number of services here. I won't go through all of them there, but it's processing payments for all departments, issuing dog tags, issuing garbage tags, working with the MRC Northern Lakes Aquatic Center, Visitor Information Center, and RCMP. So these are the satellite buildings around town that also process cash. And so that cash is brought over to the town office on a daily basis, and then we process the deposits here. We also assist in taking in donations and providing keys and contractors for the cemetery. Flipping on to the next page, what do we do? So we do have many responsibilities, but first and foremost, residents come first. The main categories that we have listed out here is helping everyone who comes into the town office, answering phones, providing information, assisting other departments, processing payments, overseeing the front lobby, and assisting with tax inquiries, utility inquiries, and other general information, as well as preparing monthly invoices and annual tax notices. Moving on, how can we help you? Helping is what we do best. If we don't have the answer, we're dedicated to find someone who does. Everyone who comes into the town office is greeted by us. We want to find out what brought them to the office, and from there we can provide information, put them in contact with a department that can help them, let them know how to find offices for services we do not offer, direct them where they would like to go. Often we call a cab or someone else, such as a parent, to pick them up, and usually that's children, not the parents themselves. Or we try and help them if it's a service that is provided at the reception. We also listen to residents who come to visit us, who come to us with concerns. We provide what information we can, take notes, and pass those concerns along to the appropriate person or department. Phone calls are another first point of contact for us. Each call is handled with the same care as if the person was in front of us. When we receive a phone call, we greet the person with a friendly voice, say good morning or good afternoon, and let them know that they have contacted the town office. Once we know what the caller is looking for, we can transfer them to any department within the town, provide information on how to contact services not provided by the town, pass along messages for other departments, answer questions regarding events in town, provide information on town services, listen to concerned callers and help them the best that we can, answer and direct calls when there is a situation affecting the town, and as always, process payments and provide assistance. There's also more. So we do aim to be the information hub. We provide a variety of general community information and assistance to the public. These change daily, but can include some of the variation of the following. Directions to various locations in and around town, contact information for businesses, government services and programs, types of businesses that are around town, landfill hours, phone numbers, pickup schedules, camping locations, location of the beaches. We do get in the wintertime, is the ice safe to drive on? Is the ice on the lake gone? Court hours and the dates that they are open, the library opening hours, where to pay fines, and a lot of ATCO webpage information on how to contact ATCO directly. Moving on, we also lend a hand to other departments when it is needed. So we do receive all of the postages, parcels, and assist with scanning, passing on information, messages, and mail, providing property information for planning, engineering, enforcement, distributing items left by other departments when it's left in the pickup folder for the public, assist with bulk water change, enforcement payments for pounds, senior payments, and the senior coordinator, filling out paperwork, receiving deliveries and drop-offs, directing people, general complaints, and directing them to the appropriate departments. We are the gatherer of the RFP bids and other paperwork. We also assist seniors with photocopying, directing people for interviews and meetings, and help set up booking meeting rooms. Just some of the odds and ends. We are also responsible when it comes to the lobby. The front staff oversee the lobby. They open, close the lobby, sanitize, assist in decorating the reception area, calling parents, also monitoring visitors that are waiting in the lobby and in the front foyer area. And we may strive to maintain a safe and secure environment for the public. And we also assist in opening the loading bay for freight delivery, which is located in the back. Carrying on, so residents and guests served. In 2021 and throughout our pandemic, we aimed to continue providing services to the public, both in person and remotely. We recognized early on that not all residents had the capacity or capability of only interacting with the town remotely or online. We endeavored to provide our services in a space that complied with the legislative requirements, that kept our staff safe and residents safe, and overall ensured that our services continued on. We do track the number of residents that enter our facility, as well as phone inquiries to the best of our ability. The only thing that we don't track right now is email inquiries, as we just don't have a system that's reasonable enough to track that. But in 2021, we served 5,700 residents and guests, both in person and over the phone alone. And we also served a multitude of people through email inquiries as well. And last but not least, our goal is to connect citizens to the information they need. We aim to understand the needs of citizens, staff, and guests alike to continually improve and offers services requested and required. We believe that improving our customer service is an ongoing process. And at the end of the day, did you receive the information you were looking for? How was your visit? Let us know. So that is what our front counter does in a nutshell. Is there any questions?
Questions and comments? Counselor Drew.
My question was just about the kind of lobby and reception area. I know we had to move a lot of stuff for cleaning protocols for COVID. And currently it looks a little bit institutional, I would say. The tax clinic things are pushed to the side and all the plants are up front and the seating area is kind of gone. I was just wondering if there was a plan to, because I know it was discussed in here to be more friendly and kind of welcoming. I was wondering if there was a plan coming up to adjust that back.
From prior, we can definitely take a look and
Right now, furniture is just pushed to the side. And I think, in my opinion, it would be a little more friendly or welcoming to have the seating area back, maybe the plants rearranged a little bit. Right now, it just looks very much like we're still in the middle of cleaning protocols. So I was just curious if there were any plans for that.
yeah, no, I think we can move it back. I know we had the tax clinic up and running here.
Mhm.
So we definitely needed to move some of that out of the way. We were serving a multitude of people there, but I think that's now wrapped up here and we can kind of rearrange and get it back to a little bit normal looking.
Okay, awesome. Thank you.
Glad to hear it. Any other questions, comments? Motion to accept this as information. Thank you, Counselor Gramlich. Any discussion? All the question, those in favor? That is carried. While you're still there, Roland, I guess let's talk about year-to-date actual versus budget.
All right, so attached to the back of this report. All right. We're missing the two attachments there, Joanna. I will send those out. I do have the actual figures from attachment A and attachment B that aren't included in this report. So I'll just go over that and I'll make sure that those get included and sent out to council.
Question then, knowing that they're not attached and knowing that it's for information purposes, you're not looking for a decision. You just want to table it to the next meeting?
We can do that too.
Let's do that. And then we have the stuff in front of us.
Okay.
Motion to table this report to the next meeting. Thank you, Counselor Giroux. Any discussion? All the question, those in favor? That's carried. Let's talk about checks over 50.
All right, so these are checks over 50,000 and EFTs that have been paid in excess of $50,000 from January 1st to March 31st. So far for the first quarter, there have been 17 checks and an ETF transfer payment in excess of $50,000. All of these are for operating expenses and contributions. So if there's any questions here, I can just briefly speak about each one. Central Squares, so that is our annual software cost for the finance program. The Lesser Slave Lake Regional Housing has received 2 requisitions. Wildfire Legacy Corporation, Slave Lake Airport, and the Rotary Club have all received their annual contribution for the year. And AMSC Insurance Services has received $460,000 for the 2022. That is the insurance costs for all of our equipment and buildings. And the RCMP has been paid for its first quarter costs at $516,000. There's been 9 checks relating to payroll expenses totaling $505,000 for the period.
Questions? Concerns? Motions? Hands. Councilor Ferguson.
I'll make a motion. Be resolved that council accepts checks over 50,000 as information.
Any discussion? Call the question, those in favor? That is carried. Participation power program, Gary, page 50.
Recently, Alberta municipalities has been approaching municipalities to see if we're interested in joining their Power Plus program. The town is currently under a aggregate contract for both electricity and natural gas until 2024. This new program would start on January of 2024 and be a procurement process where Alberta municipalities would bypass the retailer, the wholesalers, and they would become the wholesaler. So they would buy directly from the power generator and resell it to municipalities at a very small markup of about 1/3 of a cent extra retail charge. Now, they're looking for some sort of commitment from municipalities to be able to move forward with this model. They're also looking at 10-year contracts as part of this model. And the advantage of the longer term contracts is that it does provide stability. AMSC's commodity sourcing experts feel that that the pricing, if they start buying 2024 contracts now, that the pricing will be much less than what it is if you're compared to the variable rate on the market. I believe that their calculations compared to the variable rate on the market versus a 10-year contract result in over $1 million in savings over a period of 10 years to the town. The other value is that it does provide that consistent pricing in terms of long-term stability for budgets and so on. The challenge is none of us really know what the long-term contract or long-term pricing of electricity is going to be in the future. So there is a bit of a risk either way. They are looking for a commitment prior to May 31st. And the other thing that I wanted to point out is part of our conversation as AMSC was just a bit of a conversation around the carbon tax and the implications of carbon tax. Now, the example I gave in my report is for natural gas, and I recognize this report is a contract around power, but natural gas power does follow a very similar formula based upon the carbon impact. Natural gas is just easier to list out in pricing. But natural gas, right now, the carbon tax that the town is paying sits at $2.68 a gigajoule. By 2031, it is supposed to rise to $8 a gigajoule. So almost 2.5 times the price of the value over the next 10 years or so is what is in the current carbon tax scheme. So that's more of a concern for administration than the actual cost of the energy itself. But it is our recommendation to move ahead with AMSC's Power Plus program. AMSC has always provided great service for our municipality and provided very reasonable energy costs for us. They do their best to find the best price point in the market on those aggregate purchases.
Okay, let's jump into questions. Councillor Ferguson.
So am I understanding this right, that if we lock into a 10-year contract, we're paying today's carbon tax prices, but not the carbon tax price in 5 or 6 years, what it may be?
We have no choice on the carbon taxing. I think that, as I understand it, the carbon tax is going to increase regardless. We're not locking into the carbon taxes, is the way I understand it. Roland might be able to help.
Because there's a little thing on the pamphlet that says avoid incurring future carbon pricing increases by locking into a long-term rate. So I'm just curious about that.
From my understanding, it was more offsetting the costs of just because of how the carbon pricing works for power and gas. So on gas, you'll see it as a separate line item. There's a separate tick that says carbon tax there, whereas power, I think it's a little bit more convoluted where it's shipped more on the producer side and then flowed through that way. And so they have to price their power going in the future a little bit differently. So we're able just to hedge some of that by locking into a 10-year contract with them so that the stability is there and we're not writing the rate. So on the power side of it, where you're hedging against the carbon taxes, you're just securing a big bulk order to make sure that we're buying enough power as a group of municipalities to bring that cost down so that the actual supplier, also has some stability on his end to take account for those increased prices. So when we looked at a couple of models, we looked at 5 years and then a 10-year. So what could happen is you might be getting a favorable rate for 5 years. And then when you go to renew, you're going to get a rate jump. So by doing the 10 years, we're kind of bringing it into the middle there and kind of averaging out the costs on the power side.
Okay.
Okay.
And just to follow up, so hypothetically, say we sign in at a contract rate and there's a huge decrease in the price of power. We're locked into this rate irregardless, right?
Yeah.
Okay, and there's penalties if we chose to break it.
Right.
Okay, thank you.
So just add to that, their AMSC isn't the only provider that we've looked at. We have looked at a couple of other ones. Some of the other options there, like the pricing that when they give you the long-term forecast, so I'm not the expert here. I'm relying on all the people providing me this information of what the long-term outlook looks like. With this new Power Plus program and the revamping of how AMSC is doing it, they're kind of mirroring what I would say more private companies have done, where you're not dealing with the middleman per se. You're going directly to the producer to help shave off costs. So there's not, administration like the old formula, and prices from what I've seen in multiple meetings, are mirror pretty much what AMSC has got laid out in front of us here.
Okay, Councilor Drew.
Thank you.
Do you know any of the other program members that have signed up, just some of the other municipalities? I'm not sure if they released that.
Oh, not off the top of my
I don't have
head.
that information.
Yeah, I would have to go grab that. Yeah.
Okay. So fundamentally, I understand that basically AMSC wants to become a regulator and sell power, and they're going to bulk buy it. You've got all these municipalities on it. We should be able to get a better deal. So fundamentally, that all makes sense to me. We buy a crap ton of power and gas to run this municipality, so it is in our best interest to save 1%. Makes a huge difference, and potentially we can save even more than that. And I can't imagine, to be honest, a scenario where these guys are not the cheapest option for us to go into. That being said, I don't really understand what we're committing to here. Like, we're going to commit to buying a 10-year contract without even understanding what the 10-year contract looks like, or we're just kind of sending a letter of interest, say, yeah, hey, we're really excited and we're in. Because I'm okay with sending a thing that says, hey, yeah, we're interested and we're in when you get your rates, and this totally makes sense to us. But to say, yeah, we're signing up for your program, we have no idea what you're actually going to charge us, that just seems silly.
So they need to know the number of municipalities and the volume of electricity that they're going to be purchasing to that, so that they can go through their process to secure that pricing. So they haven't secured the pricing yet, but they need to know the amount of electricity that the bundle that they're going to be purchasing going forward.
So as long as we're tentatively committing to the fact that, there's still a check and balance piece there, that we are able to see the rates before we sign a check there and sign a contract and do whatever, I'm totally interested. But if they want us to sign a blank, if they want us to sign a contract now and sign up, we're basically signing a blank check, which seems real fishy to me. And I understand the process. I think they need to know volume so they can go out and negotiate the rates. But realistically, we can't commit to something if they can't give us a rate.
Yeah, is there a way out in this?
We will double check and make sure there's a way out before proceeding with anything. The challenge, and I understand where they're coming from too, because they need some sort of commitment in terms of being able to say, we want to buy this bundle of electricity. They're making contracts and they're doing negotiations essentially on our behalf too, right? So they would need to be able
Agreed.
to
So
have.
realistically, I still think that this is going to be the best option.
Yeah.
But knowing the fact that they're new to this market and we're just blindly going in, we'd be really crazy if somebody that blows up in their face and they come back and be like, well, what'd you guys commit to? And we say, well, we committed to blindly whatever they came up with. That would not really work for me personally. Professionally, ethically, mentally, financially, and all those other pieces. So knowing that, then Gary, like, what do you guys want to go back and check some stuff and bring this back, or like, what do you want in motion here?
The challenge is the timeline too, right? So MSC has came forward with us just a week or so ago on this proposal. And of course, they've been approaching lots of municipalities, but their deadline is May 31st.
So they came a week ago and we need to sign up
I know.
right away.
So perhaps the motion could be to proceed as long as administration does their due diligence and
Okay, so
before proceeding.
I'll make a motion. The council authorize administration to enter in the Alberta Municipalities Power and Plus program conditional to the fact conditional to pricing verification prior to commitment.
Yep.
Does that make sense? Any discussion? Call the question. Those in favor? That is carried. Okay. Anybody else feel like we've been here all day? Oh, we have been here all day. That's why it feels like that. Okay. Moving on to page 54 in our package, council code of conduct bylaw.
So I will introduce this one in part of the Municipal Government Act was amended to require council code of conduct to be provided by bylaw. Our municipality currently has a policy. And the act also has a number of other pieces that outlines what that code of conduct must have in its content for council. So it must address things like how council represents the municipality, how they communicate, how decision-making processes happened, how things on confidentiality, conflicts of interest, and so on. That's all outlined in the Municipal Government Act and regulations. And so the town is trying to get into compliance with that legislation. And so administration is bringing forward a proposed council code of conduct bylaw that would essentially do that. We have obtained a sample bylaw from Alberta municipalities, which we are proposing that we go ahead with. There are some optional provisions in that bylaw that council could make motions or choose to not include or not include. However, it was our recommendation to move ahead with those. The other piece around this too is that in doing our research, we've also found that many municipalities have a covenant agreement between the council and the CAO that really outlines the roles that both of them would follow in a more formal protocol type of agreement. And so it is our recommendation that as the new CAO is hired, that council move ahead with a council CAO covenant for that those roles. As well, if the bylaw proceeds, then we would be with rescinding the council code of conduct policy.
Okay. Questions, comments, thoughts? I had one, but I'll let Councilor Ferguson go first.
And just more or less saying like, I'm in agreement with it. I think this is common sense. It's stuff that we should all be doing anyways. So, and it's mandated by the MGA. So I'm in support of it.
Don't disagree. And knowing that this firms up how council will conduct themselves, as well as the relationship between council and CAO. I honestly think all those are great things. I only had one concern in the optional provision. And so they have this optional provision, and it's around gifts and hospitality. And so in 15.1, members shall not accept gifts, hospitality, or other benefits that would, to a reasonable member of the public, appear to be in gratitude for influence, to induce influence, or otherwise go beyond the necessary and appropriate functions involved. The other part is members may accept hospitality gifts or benefits that normally accompany the responsibilities of office and are received as an incident of protocol or social obligation, provided the value of the hospitality gift or benefit does not exceed $100. Now, one of the things from digging into this and having a conversation with Gary was around the sense that theoretically, the way this protocol, this bylaw is laid out is that it is in council interpretation. It's also council's job to enforce themselves. There's not an independent body that does that outside of direct harassment type complaint. And I guess the only concern I have is that realistically, there are times when, whether it be a minister took us out for supper, or we had a meeting with housing while we were at AUMA, We had ATCO, we went out and had a meeting with them and we all went for supper and so on and so forth. There's potential that that could be more than $100. Realistically, these are isolated incidents that have happened very rare. It's usually once a year and it's usually around AUMA. And I just would hate for, somebody to come back and say, okay, you guys aren't following your own policy. So my only thought was to increase that amount from 100 to 500 or something, that it was an exorbitant amount. Because I didn't want it to be construed as something inappropriate as we went along. That was my only concern. Other questions, cautions, discussions, thoughts on that?
Want to amend 15.2?
My recommendation would be to amend 15.2, just to increase the amount so that we weren't in a situation where, example, we're having supper with a minister and it's like, okay, well, you can, for whatever reason, we go to X, Y, Z, and this doesn't happen all the time, but you went and they bought supper and it was $110 a person or something. And we say, okay, we'll put $100 on there and invoice us the other 10 we pay personally, or how that works. I realize the optics of people looking at this stuff would think, okay, they get a whole bunch of things out there, and that's not really what happens. I just don't want to put any council or administration or the town in jeopardy by going outside of that. So my only comment was to increase that.
And what would be an appropriate number, would you think?
That's why I just said the $500 amount.
500?
Yeah.
So when we take this, does this include all of council, or is it $100 per person? So I can see if it's for all of council as a whole institution, but 500 might be a little high for individuals. Or is that at a time, or is that during a whole term, or how does that work?
It would be up to interpretation, sorry, but my belief would be it would be per person and per incident. And the other challenge is that council may not even know what the cost of some of the, a dinner with a minister, if the minister is paying, they might not even know the cost of it to a total amount either, right? So I think if council wishes to adjust the amount, a motion to adjust the amount and then pass the bylaw as amended would be appropriate.
Yeah, or we build a portion in that it has to be declared or something beyond, but I know of like I said, this is like a once a year thing. It's usually when we're going to AUMA and something's going on, and we go to something, but we've had opportunities in the past too, where there was a hospitality night and they paid for even there's a hospitality center there or whatever else. There was a lot of, I found during this past election, there was a lot of critiques about everything that council does and lots of interpretations about how we do business. And I found it very frustrating. And so all of my point is I want to protect council for future amounts there that, what is the interpretation? And maybe I'm overthinking it because it really is up to council largely to police this. It's just making it something realistic as we move forward. Councillor Adams.
I agree with you on the amount of $100 does not take long to go through, especially when you're counting a hospitality suite at AUMA. Like the impact that it could have if we're not following this bylaw. I mean, it's by law. So we got to make sure that we are within that. And I mean, it will bring awareness and allow us to constantly question what we're receiving or not, and if it's actually what it's doing as far as either affecting a decision or if it's not. I definitely like the idea of having this in place. But I get where you're coming from with the $100 piece, that when you start giving out examples, your head starts spinning around what other things are out there. And it doesn't take long to chew through $100 on one thing. And especially when we don't even know the value of half this stuff when at an event, right? Does it count for the actual suite part? Does that count as part of the $100? It can be out there.
Yeah, and realistically, I was saying the 10 years I've been on council, like this doesn't happen outside of, to be honest, stuff that we do either with the provincial government or with AUMA, because that's typically the only conference we go to. So I just don't want someone But I just don't want an external person looking at this and saying, well, I think that that is a gift and it's valued at 125, so you broke your piece there, and that becomes a big thing. Yeah, so that was my concern about increasing it to 500, that it made more sense whether, you know, if something came in there, that there was a little bit more flexibility in how that was evaluated. Counselor Giroux.
And just from a tax perspective, because I love to give that, from the CRA's perspective, like cash award, like non-cash awards and things up to $500 are considered non-taxable. So non-cash gifts, like, so not gift cards or cash. So if their perspective is the $500 before they consider it to be something that would have to be on an employee's T4, I don't believe that the 500 taken into this context is out of line. Because it is a non-cash, you know, something that you'd be received because it's a meal out or something like that. So I would also be in support of the $500 just because precedent from other organizations seems reasonable.
Other questions, comments? Okay, so if we amended, so because this is kind of written and it's written as optional, then do we still read the motions the way, or do we have to say it's amended, or how does it work? Okay. So I would make a motion then to start that we amend section 15.2 from the benefit from $100 to $500 for the council code of conduct bylaw number 10, 2022. Any discussion? Call the question. Those in favor? That's carried. Next, Councilor Gramlich.
The council code of conduct bylaw number 10-2022 received first reading.
Any discussion? Call the question. Those in favor? That's carried. Councilor Ferguson.
The council code of conduct bylaw number 10/2022 received second reading.
Any discussion? Call the question. Those in favor? That's carried. Councilor Brando.
The council gives unanimous consent to give council code of conduct bylaw 10/22 or 2022 third reading.
Any discussion? Call the question. Those in favor? That's carried. Councilor Hughes.
The council code of conduct bylaw 10-2022 receives third and final reading.
Any discussion? Call the question. Those in favor? That is carried. Councilor Giroux.
Motion that council rescind the council code of conduct policy.
Any discussion? Call the question. Those in favor? That is carried. Sorry, Councilor Adams. Any discussion? Call the question. Those in favor? That is carried. Moving right along. Alberta Rural Health Week proclamation is in the back of our package on page, I can't even see because it's written in here, but 75. So realistically, that's coming up May 30th to June 3rd. And so RPAP, which is the Rural Health Professions group, has asked that we proclaim this Rural Health Week. So I need a motion to declare May 30th to June 3rd, 2022 as Alberta Rural Health Week. Councilor Giroux.
I will make that motion to declare May 30th to June 3rd, 2022 Alberta Rural Health Week at Slave Lake.
Okay, any discussion? Call the question. Those in favor? That is carried. So I'll read this out real quick. Rural health providers are powerful assets in their communities. Not only do their healthcare skills and practices enhance their community's quality of life, but these professionals also contribute to rural life on a more personal level. They have special relationships with their patients and community as families, friends, neighbors, volunteers, teachers, and mentors. Community volunteers led by local health professional attraction and retention committees are the heart and soul of their communities. These local volunteers go above and beyond to support healthcare and healthcare providers in their communities, developing innovative and collaborative approaches to successfully attract and retain healthcare providers and help keep health care close to home. I, Tyler Warman, Mayor for the town of Slave Lake, do hereby designate May 30th, June 3rd, 2022 as Alberta Rural Health Week in the town of Slave Lake. I urge all community residents to show appreciation for the contributions of the rural health professionals and community volunteers whose abilities and efforts enhance the quality of life in rural Alberta. In closing, I will say that our council previously has talked about this, or council currently has talked about this. There's never been a more important time to thank the health professionals than the last 2 years of the enormous price they have paid and sacrifice they have made to be in the healthcare system and keep as many of us as safe as possible during a time when I think a lot of them did not feel very appreciated. And I can't imagine anything I say tonight will move that needle very much. But I will say that on behalf of council and the rest of our community, we very much and sincerely appreciate everything you do on a regular basis to keep us and our families safe. And I hope that this message reinforces the fact that on those days that you are frustrated and often you get to see the worst side of us when we show up at our worst, we still do care a lot about what you do for us. Lastly, Mayor's Corner. Obviously some big excitement coming up here at the end of the month prior to our next council meeting. Oilers are coming to town, and so that's an announcement that has been there, that the Oilers organization in partnership with ATCO is putting on a weekend full of festivities. They're working with the fire department. We've got alumni games and icebreaker. Councillor Gramlich, I want to give him 100% credit for helping make that materialize. I think it's a great opportunity to showcase our community, brings people from out of town, and the fact that we have large, significant organizations looking at investing and spending time in our community, giving back a higher quality of life to our residents. I think that is significant. So I encourage people to get out and participate. Council's been quite busy here the last little bit. It seems like a long day. If you're watching this, it's because it has been. We started our virtual interviews for our CEO position today and spent most of the day working on that. I'll be doing that tomorrow again as well, and back here at 7:30 a.m. on Thursday to finish up that process. It is our intention then to hopefully shortlist and do some in-person interviews with candidates next week. And so we're excited to see that process evolve, but it does take a bunch of council's time behind the scenes, an enormous amount of mental energy to go through all of those and do a good evaluation. So I appreciate council coming and participating in that. Alberta North Central Alliance was supposed to have a meeting this week, but there was a number of communities that had a conflict. Our next piece is to talk about strategic planning. As I mentioned previously, that we were successful in receiving a $200,000 grant from the government of Alberta to work towards a number of those. So we're just working on rescheduling that. If you didn't get a chance to come out and get a free burger last week, Lesser Slave Lake Regional Fire Service was here to showcase their new piece of equipment, which is starting to be old now because it's been a while, but they didn't get a chance to showcase it during COVID. There are a number of organizations that helped make that boat possible. And so it's a beautiful boat there for life rescue efforts on, the biggest lake in Alberta. That's, I don't know the official definition, that has all of its boundaries within the province of Alberta, but we're a big chunk of water. There's a lot of people coming here working on economic development. And so to be able to have that piece, to be able to ensure safety of people that visit and live here, I think it's fantastic. Because even more fantastic is to highlight organizations like Whitewater Athletic Association that put in $75,000 towards a $130,000 boat that was purchased. And this $30,000 boat total outlaying expense to Slave Lake and area taxpayers is $0. So there are a number of other organizations that were highlighted in there, by encourage people just to be aware of the fact that that group works hard behind the scenes, and there are a number of community organizations that buy into that. And we just want to say thank you on behalf of all taxpayers that that directly saves us money. Lastly, I will say that Gary and I had a great meeting with the Reeve and CAO here. Not last week, but the Friday before, to talk about some things coming up with intermunicipal and things that are on the radar, because they've been busy with budget and strategic planning. Our intermunicipal meetings have kind of been pushed off. Our next one though is coming up in June. And Joanna, I think we've confirmed a date for that. If we haven't, please make sure that we have. She's nodding like yes, so we're in good shape. But the point is, there's a lot of things that happen behind the scenes. And the easiest way to create friction with your neighbors is by not getting that communication across. So we just use this as an opportunity to say, hey, this is what we're hearing. This is what's on our radar. This is our interpretation of X, Y, Z. It was a great meeting and I'm looking forward to intermunicipal coming up. I'm really excited about the things happening at the beach and the equipment that's being invested in, and just the enhancements that are coming there to be able to have businesses and food trucks and opportunities out there and just really capitalize on, one of the things we always talk about is the frustration that we have as council is that we have these immense opportunities in this region, but sometimes we have a hard time being able to capitalize them because we're lacking the infrastructure or the organizations that are able to do it. And so just this is another huge win, I think, towards moving towards that goal. The one noticeably to council, just so we're aware, we talked about the agreements. So we want to get into those a little bit in June as well. And so most noticeably talking about any issues that we have with those agreements. We've done some of that preliminary, but we talked also about separating out the agreements. Maybe we tackle getting one out of the way before we move into the other, or rather trying to do them both together. And so there was consideration to say, hey, can we get fire services dealt with quicker? And so the intention is to work through that at the intermunicipal and bring recommendations from council that we're already kind of in where we're at or where our concerns lie. And so I know that our council has discussed it previously, but I wanted to formalize potentially in a motion here that we can take back to intermunicipal and say that we have reviewed X, Y, Z in the hopes that we can get one of the agreements done. And so my motion would be that we my motion, how would I say this? The council make a motion that we authorize the intermunicipal committee to negotiate the fire services agreement and currently recommend no changes to the agreement at this time. That has been our conversation thus far. And we thought it was a quite fair agreement on both sides. And so we just wanted some tooth and nail that we could basically take to that meeting to be able to hopefully move some of those things along. Discussion on that. Call the question, those in favor. That is carried. Okay, we will with that, sorry. I think we're adjourning. There's no closed session here tonight. So motion to adjourn. Thank you, Councillor Adams. Any discussion? Call the question, those in favor. That is carried, and I will see you guys all in the morning again.